There we go. Okay, so I think it is, yes, we are recording and we are now running live. So great stuff. I think it's been an interesting year for just about everyone out there. And so, yeah, that brought us to this topic for tonight, to basically just see how we can get it done with less, because I think we all have so much that we have to get done. And we are certainly experiencing that feeling of having less to get it done with. And, maybe we do feel like we are juggling some lemons at the moment. But as you can see, for those of you that do know me, you know that I normally present just with Michelle in the background to keep me on the straight and narrow. Tonight, I have Conrad with me, and I'm going to introduce him shortly. So if we move on, for those of you that don't know me, I do business optimization, tax, trusts, and estates. So basically, if you can hit a calculator with it, I'm happy and I want to deal with it. And when we deal with Conrad, and he's going to tell us more about what he does, he specializes in value engineering and realizing, really, we look at benefit realization management, but that's a very big word. So Conrad, tell us in layman's terms, what are we talking about?
You see, it didn't even fit in that block properly. That's how long it is.
It's a long one, that, man. It's a long one.
Yeah. It should have reduced the font there. So thanks, Renata. Michelle, thank you for having me. It's great to be a guest on your webinar. Firstly, I want to say that. So my name's Conrad. I am a partner at a company called VM Services, and we are value engineering specialists. And so just in terms of my own expertise, I obviously am a specialist in value engineering, but also benefit realization management. And do you want me to give a definition now of value engineering?
Well, I think if we can maybe just tie in why it is that you're here. So how are the two of us going to try and help our audience tonight?
Yes, and how it's relevant to the topic. Well, I guess when you're talking about getting it done with less, so value engineering is, in layman's terms, is the science of getting something to achieve its objective, right, at the minimum cost.
Oh, we like that.
Whether it's a project, a service, a product, or even a plan. It's like, how do you make it do what you need it to do while it consumes the minimum amount of resources doing it?
Great.
That's it in a nutshell. And benefit realization management is something I was involved with for quite a few years that we're still doing. And it's basically identifying what the benefits of a particular initiative should be, and then profiling those benefits so that you make sure that at the end of the day you achieve them. So it's basically with projects, we always talk about what we need to do. We need to follow through with what we need to do. But with BRM, what you're doing is do you ever follow through with the value?
There we go.
Right, you achieve the value. So that's that in a nutshell.
Okay, great stuff. So hopefully tonight we are going to give our audience some takeaway nuggets on how to do just that. So I think let's look at where we are finding ourselves at the moment. Now I just need to move some faces out the way here for me to read. Okay, so the situation, where is it that we find ourselves at the moment? I think for most of us, we can say that we really are struggling meeting our targets as a result maybe of economic conditions. And then, of course, we need fundamental change in our business. And this is, of course, at a time when we're constrained and we're really not in a position to do that. So, Conrad, your 2 cents worth on this, like how do we handle this little lemon that's thrown at us?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one. It's so, I mean, 2020, obviously, I mean, it's a bit cliche now, but nobody really saw it coming. And I think nobody wants to not meet their targets. Nobody wants to be in a situation where they make less money, or they don't even, that their business closes its doors. So you still have to meet the bar. But in order to do that, you need to change, because the landscape has changed.
That's it.
Okay, the entire landscape has changed very, very rapidly. But now you need to change at a time when you have the least resources available to make those changes. So it's a bit of a double whammy.
Okay, so then let's look at, what are we talking about when we talk about resources? I mean, so what is it really that we we need to get our stuff done. And that would be the tangible stuff. So what is it that we can touch and see, the money and the materials? And then we've got the intangible and the energy, the motivation and the time. And I think some people may feel like, yes, there was a lot of time because for a period of time, it's all we had, but you didn't maybe not have the motivation or the energy. Now that people are picking up and getting back into business, maybe you don't have the motivation because now the money is not there and you need to get stuff done. So yeah, tying in with those resources, again, it really does hamstring us a bit when we know that we need to make certain changes and we struggle with these things. Your side?
Yeah, look, I think we've all been talking about that burnout that people have been experiencing, and having so much time staring at a screen.
Yeah.
And so if you've got employees working for your company and you've probably been pushing them quite hard, and so that you have the numbers, you have enough people, but what each person has available to give you is diminishing. And I think that's, we can feel that in a societal sense even.
Yeah. Okay. So of course, now we know where we are. So now we need to look at how do we solve this problem? And you and I have spoken about this quite a bit, the two fundamental outcomes that are required. And yeah, I loved when you talked about this, identifying the highest impact area. And that's one of the things that you guys also specialize in. And then developing and implementing the minimum viable solution. So really getting the most done with the least and the quickest turnaround time, right?
Yeah, and it sounds like it almost sounds like it's too good to be true, but it's actually just a systematic way of thinking. Is that do you even know what the areas are that will, if you implement a change, put energy into them in your business, that they would bring a high rate of return, right, in terms of results. But when you identify those areas, if you're in a resource constrained environment, do you really want to be implementing the Rolls Royce or the Ferrari, or do you want to be going for the good enough, the thing which works that gets you from A to B, like a Toyota?
Yeah.
And so if you add those two things together, right, it's actually quite a very, very effective combination. It's very logical and rational.
That's it. I think sometimes we just find ourselves in a position where we know we have to make a change. We've got a couple of options and we're stuck with which one, where do we go? And I think that's where hopefully whilst we talk tonight, that maybe we will be able to, for some light bulbs to go on and give some ideas, because hopefully that's where we are, is that when we walk away from this, it's like, oh, okay, wait, now I'm better equipped to at least make that decision, or, oh, maybe look at it a different way. Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's awareness. Yeah.
Yes, that's it. Awareness. Yeah. Okay. So if I then look at the key areas, as I always say, and the audience that have followed me for a while and have attended a number of my workshops know that I've got these 8 key areas that I normally look at in business. And we will talk about what each one of these blocks mean. And that's why I asked Conrad to join me tonight, because he is certainly going to give us some of his insights in some of these areas. But for me, there are the areas such as the engine room, the guarding the gold, obviously what we want to talk about tonight, getting more bang for your buck, that stuff that gets us in trouble, the let's not start a riot, from good to great, and the yardstick, which is all our people stuff. And then the fork in the road, which is where we want to look at things strategically. So let's get into this. And
just before you carry on, just a note on that. So I think that so some of the points or areas that get more bang for your buck, it's very directly related to the topic. But just to tell the audience, like as we explore these areas, you'll see how these things are all really areas in your business which tie together in order to make your resource constraints become alleviated.
100%. It just all creates that chain at the end of the day. Yes. Yeah. So I will run through some of these quicker so that we can spend more time on the ones that we think we would want to maybe focus a little bit more energy. But if we look at the engine room, this is our nuts and bolts of our operation. This is the back end of our business. And I am so adamant and passionate about this part because it's often like that redhead stepchild. We're hoping for things to just happen on the back end. And what we're doing is we keep running, filling the cup from the top and chasing and marketing and selling and trying to get new deals. But what happens is once the deal comes into the business, what are we doing to honor the commitments we've made? How are we going to deliver on our promises? And if our back end operations is not optimal, if we haven't automated the mundane, the rinse and repeat stuff, and we don't have a proper CRM, how are we going to retain our client relations? How are we going to know what needs to happen next? As Conrad said earlier, this thing of people are fatigued at the moment. You cannot expect people to just remember everything. And why would you want to? You're not employing people to remember certain things. You are employing them to action certain things. You can have systems remember. You can have systems tell you what to do next and when to do it. So for me, a way to really free up time, because time is a resource, is to automate what you can. And often it's small little things that we need to automate. Something as silly as I sat with one of my clients today, and they need to make repayments on a loan that they did. But it's an intercompany loan. And I said, but hold on a minute, why have you not just set up a scheduled payment? Because what will happen is every month automatically that money will run. So it's something as simple as that. And it's a small amount. It's like 1,500 Rand. It's not like the company doesn't have the money, but it's the whole story of, oh yeah, no, they didn't think about it. They didn't remember. And next month it's a story. It's these little things. It's tiny, tiny little things that we can automate that will take away the thinking and the mundane. And I think doing that, we free up resources. We don't get into trouble because things weren't done, and we don't land up in penalty situations. Conrad, anything from your side on this back end operation side that you could think of, like off the top of your head?
Yeah, I just actually want to share a metaphor that this came up for me. So, if you look at your car today, you get in the car, you start it and you go, and most of them are automatic. But if you go back 100 years, even more than 100 years, you had these like little rickety benches on you can see it from the side, the two wheels and the benches here. And you saw how many levers those things had, right? Like you had to consistently manage many different parts of this vehicle to keep it going. And just like not even that long ago, you needed a little, you needed a choke, for example, to get an engine to start up properly. And so all those things just get automated over time. So how can you expect to have a smoothly running vehicle if you haven't built it and designed it properly?
Yeah,
that's really what, for me, this is what I'm hearing when it comes to this slide. Yeah,
and especially for me to have the CRM that I'm referring to is, what is the system I use on the back end that takes charge of my clients, that reminds me to follow up on an email, follow up on a task, give them feedback. How am I nurturing my client? Automated. I'm not saying that the system must do it. I'm saying the system must remind the warm body in my business that's supposed to love and nurture my client. And that's what I often see in businesses where things fall through the cracks, because there's nothing reminding that person. Only the wheel that squeaks the loudest gets the oil. So it's the clients that complain that are attended to, whereas the clients that are not complaining, they will eventually just go away because no one's nurturing them. And you can deal with that from a back end operation side. Okay, so let's not hammer on that too much. Now, my favorite, guarding
your favorite section, definitely.
Guarding the goal, anything money and figures. So again, this is probably where many of us have taken the ostrich approach and said, okay, well, you know what, let's just not maybe even subscribe to 2020 until we've seen the fine print. Let's just check what's happening because there's not budget. But if we go and look at where are we spending the money, what is our cash flow telling us? Even with our taxes, are we making provision for certain things? Again, a little thing that is automated but ties into my money is I often say to my clients, please have provision accounts. So what is a provision account? So if I know that I'm paying VAT every second month, or if I want to provide, this year may be a bit tough, but in normal years, I want to pay bonuses. Why would I want to wait till November and start running around for that money if every month I could have a little bit of money go into a provision account so that money can grow, and at year end, I don't have to stress about having the money. Or if I know that I need to maintain certain equipment in my business and that'll cost me X amount. Or if I know I work with certain software and the software renewal fee is due in a certain month of the year, make provision for those things. You don't have to pay it upfront or one go. You can make small provisions for these things. So, and also as far as your budget's concerned, the budget you worked with in the beginning of this year, I would be very surprised if that budget still stands, if it still works, because as Conrad said earlier, the landscape's changed. A lot has changed. And we need to go back to the drawing board and go, okay, well, where did it work? Where didn't it work? What do we need to adjust? If we, for instance, look at a silly example, we've got a property that we were renting. We had tenants. And all of a sudden, we lost our tenant and we could not place a tenant. Now, in order to place a new tenant, maybe we had to reduce the rental. Or we could hold out and say, no, I'm not reducing my rent. But for every month that I'm standing empty, that property has not got a tenant in it, I'm losing the full amount of rental. So now I have to reduce my rental. But it now means that because I've cut my rental, let's say I've cut my rental by 10% or 15%. It means that it's now going to take me time to recover and get that money back. It means my budget that I started with will no longer tie in with what I've got. It also means that I could, for instance, speak to specialists and say, listen, guys, I've got a certain amount of debts that, I know that I cannot honor right now, but I need to negotiate on this debt. Then one can enter into debt compromises. And I've done a workshop on that, and I've written plenty of articles on that, because those are options. Don't just think because money is not coming in and you've got all these expenses that you don't have options. There are options available. So even from that, how do I get more done with less? Well, we reassess. We go and see what's working. We see what's not working, and we see where we can tweak. Because if we could come to a compromise with someone that we owe money to, maybe by just paying them over a longer period of time, it means that I can free up cash flow for something else to get my business back on track. So again, getting more done with less. Conrad, anything from your side on the money stuff?
Yeah, just a pretty simple comment. I think, the focus is on meeting your targets and turning a particular profit. That's really what you want. But having a grip on the mechanics around the money itself. Yeah. So educating yourself, having professionals help you manage the money that you have and that's coming in and out. Yeah, it sounds really obvious and basic, but I think that a lot of us, especially us as being entrepreneurs, you really you spend your time doing what you're passionate about, and a lot of the stuff gets in the way. I'm actually talking from a personal perspective as well. I don't always feel like I have the time to go get into the nitty-gritty details, but I know that, and having worked with you, Renata, on that as well, just having the knowledge base and the skills to manage that is worth a lot, because how do you control it?
That's the thing.
You care so much about it, but you haven't put the mechanisms in place to actually manage it. And I think that that's a really big oversight. So that's just my point.
Thanks. And I think also my feedback that I've had from so many clients that I've worked with over the last number of years is when figures are not your passion and the reason you jump out of bed in the morning, it really sometimes becomes quite scary. Budgets apparently seem to be quite a scary thing. So that's why people may also procrastinate on it. And like you said, it's such a valuable comment. Deal with someone that does have a passion for it. Outsource it if you need to outsource it, but bring in a professional that can help you just look at it from a different angle. So thanks for that. Yeah. Okay. Now, getting more bang for your buck. And this is where you're going to have so much to say.
That's what the audience bought their tickets for.
There we go. That's why the audience joined. So basically here, we again deal with what have we got and what do we do with it. And for me, often when I go into businesses, I see that we are not really utilizing our resources properly. So here we are looking at, it could range from upskilling our current people to repurposing certain equipment, people, whatever it is we have, and resource optimization. So again, it brings us back, and it's so funny how all these things tie into one another. Again, yeah, I can use a resource. For instance, if I've got a person that is costing me 18,000 Rand a month, but they're doing the work of, let's call it what I would pay someone 5,000, because it's things that's rinse and repeat, things that can be automated, things that are mundane. If I automated some of those roles and I upskilled this individual, couldn't I get more out of that person? And understanding what their unique contribution is to actually add more value to the business. So for me, I think that's what is so important, is that we understand what we have, what we can do with it, and how we can get more out of it. And now I'm going to hand over to Conrad, because I think this is where you want to waffle on a bit. And can I go to the next screen for you?
Yeah, go for it.
Here we go. Look, all the colorful screens is you. I get the block and the accounting type looking stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to break up the square theme with a bit of circles.
Are you calling me a square?
So, just as a general comment, I think that it's always worthwhile looking at things like this in a very systematic and structured way. So it might be that we have ideas about how to improve our business, or that we think that there is no way that it can be improved. But undertaking a systematic, structured process that goes step by step and is facilitated by somebody will then uncover what is the opportunities that are available. And that's really what this is about. So resource optimization through value engineering. This is my little cameo here in your presentation. So I mean, really, what is this? So we all have objectives, and so an objective could be, for example, I want to increase my turnover by 10% by 2022, right? Or by 25% by 2022, or my profits, or anything along those lines. Or I want to start this new business unit by a certain date. Think of like a SMART objective. Now, what we do in this process, and it's really, I'm really saying in the layman's sense, because there is an entire methodology behind it. And like, we have like an academic slide pack, which I haven't brought here, right? So just bear that in mind. So what it's saying is what is really needed to meet this objective. That's the first thing that we would get down. Is like, what do you need? And what you then do with that is find out what is actually needed out of what you thought you needed to do. And so the takeaway from value engineering is that it is important to know what you're doing, but it's actually more important to know what you shouldn't be doing. And that's really what we apply to plans, products, services, and projects, is that methodology that allows you to pick out the outcomes that are required, and then the actions that are linked to those outcomes that will actually meet your objective. And if you look at the bottom left of the slide, you see this little Jenga block. I think a Jenga block is a really nice metaphor. So the objective is the tower that needs to stand. Okay. And what value engineering comes and does, it says, yes, so you've got this plan, you've got this project, you've got this product, you've got the phone that's made out of all of these components, or you've got, I don't know, a battery pack, or you've got an engine, or whatever it may be, or it could be an IT system, for example. And you've got all these parts that are required to make this tower stand. What value engineering comes and does is it pushes out, it tests which are the blocks that can move, and then it pushes them out, right? And it allows you to either build your tower higher, or it allows you to, so you do more with less, or it allows you to have a tower of the same height, but with fewer blocks. And that systematic process of value engineering is actually the testing and going to each one and pushing and seeing, hey, which ones will move. And that's like the most layman explanation I can probably give.
I love it.
Love it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically this would mean then is that by doing the value engineering, you could spend less money to get to the answer quicker, to spend less money to get a bigger result.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've got a plan, for example, a strategy
Mm.
in your company, you don't need, most of the time what we find is that we can take out about 60%, around about there, plus minus, of the activities that you thought were required to meet an objective. If you look at a service or a system, many of the things that are in there actually have duplicated functions that you don't know that they're duplicated because you haven't defined them functionally. You can build and design, you can design something that does exactly what you require it to do with fewer components. There's certain ways of doing that. And so it's really a methodology that stretches from the conceptual to the physical, depending on how you're applying it.
And just to confirm for the audience, this doesn't mean that we are talking engineering. We are talking about, this could be for any business where we want to basically get to the bottom of what is, we may have several challenges and we want to actually figure out what is the true challenge that is got the biggest impact right now, or we have several options of which way to turn right now, and we need to pick one, and we need to find out once again what's going to cost the least and have the biggest impact.
Yeah, and what's the thing that you shouldn't be doing?
Yeah,
it's a question we never ask ourselves, is what are the things we should stop doing? But we think we think that we should be doing them, but we don't actually.
Yeah.
And that's a really big eye opener when you get to that point.
Okay. Great
Cool.
stuff. Well, thank you. I like that one. I like that little Jenga block. Okay. So then part of this, let me put a little wet blanket again. So the stuff that gets us in trouble. Now, this is all those, of course we said so, the rules, the regulations, the compliance. Now you may sit and go like, okay, well, what has this actually got to do with getting more done with less? Well, you see, this is where if you don't have these things in place and you start getting into trouble, it starts costing you money. So what you're now doing is you wasting either time or money, or people also being a resource, running around trying to sort things that is now taking away from the core business or the core of where you're trying to go. And it becomes a distraction and a waste. So often with these rules and regulations and compliance, it's like all those hoops that we as businesses need to jump through. And some of them are across the board the same for most businesses, and some of them are very industry specific. But this could be something as silly as, where's the share certificates for the business? Where's your MOI? Where's your last set of financials? When was your last taxes submitted? Where is your occupational health and safety? All these kind of things that can trip us up and that can get us into trouble with labor, with SARS, and with other legislation. The joy is that once you've actually fixed this up, and it's relatively simple to fix up, you only need to build a file to have all the stuff in, and whether that file's in the cloud, whether it's on paper, once you've sorted this out, then it's a matter of just keeping it compliant annually. But really, I must say, most businesses, I can't honestly name one business that I've started working with where I could walk in and go, okay, show me your file, and people had it ready. And that's the thing, because it's one of those things that just it doesn't bring money in. So why would we want to spend money on it? And the concern is there that it costs money when we don't fix it. So this may not necessarily save us money or bring in the money, but it will cost us money when it's not done properly. So for me, I think, it's like you're a rule follower and you have to have the stuff ready. It's really just to cover yourself and to make sure that the things are in place. And it's one of those monkeys on your back until you sort it out. You've got the file and you can put it somewhere in a cupboard, and now you are compliant and you've got it sorted. So it's as simple as knowing who is what you want to call your company compliance officer. And you can't expect that person to know everything, but that person that is there to just make sure that they've got everything, or that they will build that with the help of someone that does specialize or can guide them and can help them so that you can get on track. So that's really what that is. It's just to keep you out of trouble. And by keeping you out of trouble, we again are bringing it back to doing more with less, because we're now not spending time, people, and money doing things that should have been done and that should be in a corner somewhere and not getting us into trouble. Have you got anything from your side on this, Conrad? I think
Yeah,
Conrad.
definitely. Look, I think it's also, you can almost say doing more. Am I here? All right.
Oh, there we go. Yes, there you are.
Doing more with less risk.
There we go. Less risk.
Exactly. So it's almost like it's something as, okay, so it's a black swan event, and people may have said, oh, I'm putting in measures to keep us safe from a global catastrophe. That sounds stupid, because that will never happen. And because the probability is really low, and the cost of something is the probability, what the cost of it happening times is probability. So, but these things that are really risky, like not being compliant, not meeting a regulation, so things that can really cripple a business if you fall foul of certain rules. I think as humans, we often say, well, that's probably not going to happen, so I'm going to take a chance. But,
almost
if
like
it does
COVID
happen,
won't happen. Almost like that, right?
Yeah, nobody saw it, right? And I think that happens on smaller scale. It happens on a smaller scale everywhere. It's like saying, I'll never be scammed. Okay. And then it happens to you, and you're like, how the hell did that happen? And it's just because you didn't take the time to speak to somebody, or you didn't take the time to properly investigate how to be compliant in that sense, right? Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on this.
Thanks. But yeah, so that's true. It's like to do things with less risk. So true. Okay, now we're going to start with the people section in the business. And again, here, when we're talking about let's not start a riot, as far as the people stuff is concerned, this is more the transactional stuff. So this is like, again, policies, procedures, HR systems. So the back end stuff of the people, the paper stuff of the people. This is not yet the warm fuzzy part of the people, but more the knowing the rules. And someone one day said to me, there's a lot less fighting when people know the rules of the game. And I think this is what this part is about, is when the team knows what are the policies, what are the procedures. In other words, what are the procedures of doing certain things in the business? And then your HR systems to follow. So your payroll, your leave management, and all those, your disciplinary processes, all that forms part of this section. But where we saw a very serious lack and a very quick wake-up call was when people started, as a result of COVID, having to now work hybrid. So either they were working virtual, they were working some virtual, some office, and we still have a lot of businesses that are working hybrid, where people will be in companies for maybe 1 day, 2 days a week, and the rest they're working at home. Where have the policies and procedures been updated to match that requirements from staff? Where does it now tell them what is expected of them? And again, because of these things not being monitored properly, that is why people are either suffering with burnout because they're now working much longer hours trying to get more done, or you have where you'll now find that your previously people that you thought were performing so well in your business are now not performing at all. And it may be because either they don't have the guidance, they don't know the processes, or maybe someone else was just always covering for them and picking up the slack. This is where you're going to find these kind of things. And this is a very big part. I think I especially saw this now where people started working hybrid. The policies and procedures was where a lot of people got caught off guard. And especially then when you need to bring in the HR lawyers and the HR specialists to come and help you to sort out your systems. But they only come in when things go wrong. Again, what now happens? We're spending money, time, and sometimes people, because you need to allocate someone in your office to now sort things out. So again, these are the things that if we've got our finger on the pulse here, that will not cost us money. And so, in other words, lessen the risk.
Mm.
So, anything from your side?
Yeah, I think that people do really badly in situations where there's a high degree of uncertainty.
Yep.
It's like it's just such a human thing. It's people just can't function. They seize up, and having clarity on where do I stand with my company.
There we go.
Where does what are the rules? If
Mm.
now we're all working at home, so what now? Am I allowed to go? Am I allowed to go to the store as long as I've done my work, or is that again like out of the question? And I think now with all of these seismic shifts in our landscape, we have to kind of recreate that sense of safety and certainty in people. And and I think it's really important because people can't function properly if they're doubting. And I think value engineering is also linked into this, because when you know exactly what it is you should do and shouldn't do, I think it just makes you more comfortable, because you don't have this nagging idea ringing in your mind that you've missed something.
Yeah, no one wants to do something and get into trouble. So what happens is, when people don't want to get into trouble, what happens is you will get certain individuals that, out of fear of consequences, they will not take action, and they will take less and less and less action, which will also negatively impact on their outcome.
That's very, very true. I've seen that personally. Yeah.
Okay, so next up, we are looking at human performance. Now, this is when we're now dealing with the warm fuzzy. So when we've looked at the policies and procedures and the HR systems, we've set the rules. We've said to people, okay, these are the rules. This is how we operate. But now we need to look at what actually is required with the warm body, with the actual human being. And here again, it is so important to understand the unique contribution of each member. Because if you've got a person that is a very people's person, that's the person that's always like at the office, sharing a joke, having lunch with someone. You'll always catch them between people's offices sharing a joke. All of a sudden, this person's left alone at his or her home to now operate. And they can't just jump on the phone the whole time because they're disrupting the other people, or jump on a Zoom call. You're going to find that that person's contribution may lessen, because they now are not having their value system met. And they may feel like they are operating in a completely different field. So you need to understand not only the contributions, but also the values. What makes up those people? People that, for instance, have a very high value on family. If they are operating from home and they've got a crying child at home, that's where their energy is going to go. And yes, you are still paying them and you need them to do their work, but have some compassion and understand, how do we make this work for everyone? Also, as far as the learning and development is concerned, and then providing support. So, and this is not just for virtual, this is also back at the office. Again, understanding the contribution, because we may have had to lessen our team. Remember, we're trying to get more done with less. So we may be in a position where we've had to let some of our team members go, or where we are considering having to let some of our team members go. And when we have to do that, we need to start looking at, okay, so what is going to be the impact on the team as a whole when a particular member is let go? Who's going to fill that void? Because it's not just who's going to do the filing or who's going to just do that job. It is, what is the void left or not left in some instances by the departure of that particular party. So when it comes to the human performance, again, we need to see, how is it that we're going to get more done with less? And I think understanding the unique contributions, and there I often use the contribution compass that we use as a tool to work with that, will tell you very quickly whether people actually has a special gift to do more in your office. You may never know that that person has a natural knack for figures, because they would not share that maybe around in the office, but they may just be the person that you need to go and check certain figures for you. Or that person that's normally going around sharing the jokes may have a special knack for social media, and you could rope them in to maybe launch a product line or to spend some time on social media marketing your business. So understanding that. And then the learning and development, man, there is so much free education available at the moment. Obviously, many of them is like an entry level with the idea of upselling to something else. That's also fine. If you are going to learn something and develop and grow through something, can that add value to the business? And the providing the support. Remember, if we're providing support now, we may not be left with that gaping hole when all of a sudden that person, that contributing member stops contributing because they are faltering, they are on burnout, they are no longer able to just contribute the whole time. So here again, bringing it back to how do we get more from our team? And the first step is understanding what those people are made up of and what they can contribute, and understand where they are at the moment. Meet them at their level, and that you will find through the providing the support. You will know when someone is really taking strain at home, and maybe that's when you need to step in and go, you know what, I know that at the moment you are struggling with a sick family member or something. Let's just give you a day or two. Let someone else step in. Let's see how we can support, because you're buying goodwill. You are buying, again, that person going, hold on, when I needed it, you supported me. How can I now support you back? In the ideal world, for the most part. Conrad, on your side, anything you want to add here for us?
Yeah, I think just a specific point on learning and development. I think that's always directing learning towards the resolution of a particular problem makes it more effective. So somebody needs to have a reason to have the information. And I think we do a lot of training in companies where we just do training.
That's
We
it.
think it's a good idea to train people en masse, but training people in order to allow them to overcome an obstacle which they're struggling with is the most effective way for them to actually learn a skill. Yeah, but I mean, human performance, it's really is the core of this, isn't it? That's really what a business is. That's why it's called a company. Like we're in company with each other. So quite central.
That's it. Okay, so moving on then from good to great, this is where you're stepping in again and talking a bit more on your blue circles.
Yeah, they're really throwing these circles around. So it was really inspired by the contribution block when I put this together. So when we talk about contribution, a different angle is asking, do people all pull in unison, and do they do their parts in order to move me from A to B? So say I have the objective again, it's the same objective as I mentioned before. And now I have this beautiful plan, and I know exactly what it should do. I know what I shouldn't do. It's all there in paper. And now it's saying, hey, okay, we need to do this. It actually needs to happen. And what kind of energy and commitment do people have when they are actually executing and implementing? And so, interestingly enough, it's one of it's actually a byproduct of the value engineering process, but an entire market segment for value engineering actually came out of it at some point, because what people discovered is because of the model that value engineering uses, it actually creates very deep commitment. So value engineering always uses a workshop model with a group. So value engineering doesn't tell a client what they should do. It doesn't actually bring content. What it does is you choose the right people which can be internal or external or a mixture of the two. It's often just internal to the company you're working with. It brings them together and it maximizes the collective wisdom of that group of people. Okay. And so when you maximize that through a very, very rigid and structured and rigorous process that you facilitate very carefully, you actually get a hell of a lot out of it. And you get this result, you get this plan, which is like very, very, it has all the context behind it. But because all of the content comes from those people that were in the room, and what you typically do is the guys who are implementing are parts of the workshop.
Yes.
Right. What then happens is that those guys actually have it's the probability of implementation is much higher than if you have an external party coming up with a plan, all the content, keeps the executive happy because the executive likes it, and then they say, here, give it to the guys who should implement it. Here, this is your job, you must do it. And this person gets this brief, and they might not even believe in it. Even if it's correct, they weren't there to go through the process of thinking. So they don't really have skin in the game, because if it's your thing that you came up with, that's very, very different, right? It's got a very, very different feeling to it. And so it really, I mean, this process is just to briefly go over it. You have all these scattered views and opinions. And in this workshop, what you're doing is you're finding the overlaps between the different participants' realities and their views. And when you come out the other side, and again, it's not really shown here in an academic sense how it works, it's just showing it in a very layman's term. But when you come out of it, you have this very deep shared understanding, and you can then use it to align a team against an objective. You can align your company and your client. You can align another company and another client. You can align partners, executives, individuals even. And it's all through that process of solving a particular problem together. And that the idea then is that you then create a situation where you are naturally maximizing contribution.
Nice.
Right. That's it.
Nice. Yeah. So you're maximizing the natural contribution, but in a natural way, because you get everyone to collaborate. Yeah. And because of the collaboration, as you say, they now have skin in the game. They have a vested interest, and we all work together, because it is so true. How often do we see something's not working, and we try and implement a change, and we know that it's the right change, but we just cannot get the buy-in, and it's like dragging a chair behind us, and we're just not getting there. So I think this is so valuable, is to have the input of the team, and the buy-in. And as you say, that's also when we're looking at the contribution.
And having a neutral facilitators, that's really important as well, because then there's a witness who doesn't actually, if it goes left or it goes right or goes up or goes down, it doesn't matter to the facilitator, but what they're looking for is the truth. And Correct. Having that witness there has a profound effect on the people in that workshop.
Okay. So now we have looked at having the rules in place. We've looked at how to get everyone on the same team, and we've looked at how to look after the how can I say, the emotions of our people. So we've looked after the rules, we've looked after the emotions, but how do we measure performance? And again, this has become quite a sticky one with this virtual and hybrid workspace all of a sudden, because long gone are you are measured by your appearance in the business. So you're here for 8 hours, so you had to work. It's more now a matter of output. And I think for a long time,
goodness.
Trying to move there. Yeah, we've been trying to move there. But it's like they always say, you raise your children as you were raised. So if you were managed in a certain way and you were brought up through the ranks, you may very well manage in the same way. And I still see that we a lot of the management is, but we have seat warmers. If we don't have a seat warmer for 8 hours, then certainly the job couldn't have been done. And what has certainly now come to the front is where we are picking up that is not necessarily the case. And again, here, when people say to me, my people aren't doing what they're supposed to, I go, well, hold on a minute. Where is the clear expectations? Where have you set the expectations? Where have you clearly explained the what, the how, and the why? Because often people know what they're supposed to do, ABC. They may know how to do it to a certain extent, but how many people really know the why, and why their little bit of what they're doing is fitting into the big picture? How does what they do impact the big picture? Because if we're only ever dealing with our tiny little bit, but no one ever includes us in the big picture, how do we know? How do we know that if we do not phone this client back when we said we would, what the down the chain or down the line impact's going to be. How will that cost the company? So setting the expectations, for me, clear expectations, is paramount. And that is not a job spec. That's not a tick sheet of you need to do these 10 things a day. That is not setting clear expectations. Then, of course, the frequent touch points. What I mean here is, how frequently are we checking in? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know how to do it right? Where do you turn when you think it's not being done right? And what do we do when we see things are going off track? Because I've also often seen where, someone's not doing it right, and you go, listen, you're not doing it right, but you don't teach them or guide them. And tomorrow you're not doing it right. And the third day you're not doing it right. And eventually there's this huge explosion, but you haven't fixed the problem. You haven't optimized your resource, because remember, people are resources and they're expensive. They're an expensive resource. They're expensive to source. They're expensive to train up. They are really, really expensive to train up. Believe you me, I've been through it. And then they're expensive to keep on. That salary, that seat, that desk, that internet, people are expensive resources. So make sure that you get what you pay for. But at the end of the day, you will only get what you pay for if you set clear expectations and you checking in. And then recognizing performance. At the end of the day, how do we recognize performance? And do we understand that not everyone wants to have their performance recognized in the same way? Some people may want that weekend away. Other people may need the money to put a kid in school. Other people may want the certificate and the naughty badge in front of the group of people, where the other person might sooner die and crawl under a desk if you wanted to recognize them in front of everyone in the business. So you need to understand again, and that goes again with the unique contribution of your team member. How are they made up? What is going to make them perform, and how do you recognize that performance? Because I think also for anyone that has run businesses, the stick will only work for so long. The carrot approach seems to work so much better. And it's not just the carrot where it's a reward. It's, how do you grow people? How do you make them part of the community? How do you give them a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose? That is where you are going to recognize that performance and get more from them. Because if you can lead by fear, or you can lead by respect, in my view. I may be wrong, but that's my view. And for me, I'd much rather lead by respect than have people go, you know what, I want to follow that person. I want to work with someone. I don't want to work for someone. When you have your team working with you as opposed to for you, you will get a lot more out of them. So that for me is when we're looking at the measuring performance. This is not the time when you go, okay, well, we've got our annual performance review. Those days are gone. You cannot do an annual performance review, tie it to the bonus and hope for the best in January. You need to do these things more frequently, and you need to measure on a regular basis. Well, are my team members understanding what it is I want from them? Are they doing it according to our procedures? Is this what we want? Are we measuring it, and how are we rewarding them? So that for me is the yardstick side. Your side, Conrad. Have you got another? You don't have a slide on this one, no. Have you got anything here?
I just have an opinion.
Yeah, of course you do. We're running shy of time, hey? So yeah.
Yeah,
Tell me
I'll be quick here. Engineer always has an opinion.
Oh, of course.
Right or wrong. So setting expectations. There's a bit of a parallel between this and how value engineering works, because you work on an outcome level, which you call function. You call it functions. It's functional thinking, and it's the level just above what you have to do. So it's actually what needs to happen. And I think that using that thinking when you're setting KPIs with your staff, or even if you have a contract between you and somebody else, what you're doing is you say, I believe, right, you should set the expectation on the level of what the outcome should be. Yes. Because how you get there can change, right? Like everything is flexible and moving, not in all situations, but in many. And if you're just measuring people on what they should do, it doesn't guarantee that that the outcome is going to materialize, because you actually need a degree of flexibility. So kind of kicking up your KPIs one level and saying to somebody, hey, we're on the same mission here. This is what we need to achieve. and this is the role you're going to play. But your role is specifically going to be serving that outcome. And that's how I believe you get people to go a little bit above and beyond and use their minds to
Yes.
adjust the way that they show up so that the outcome is achieved. And I think it's a lot better than the usual way of saying this is what you're going to be doing and this is how I'm going to measure you is on what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's really my thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently dictatorship no longer works that well. Sad but
Yeah.
true.
Sorry, Renata. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. It's like
Yeah. Terrible
okay.
world for you now.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now we're getting to the fork in the road. And this is where we often have to be standing and we've got all these decisions to make. We know we've got challenges. We know we need to deal with these things, but we need to make decisions and we need to do so strategically because remember, we've got resources that are limited. So whatever decisions we make, when we go halfway down that road, yes, we could turn around, but what's it going to cost us in time, in effort, in energy? So what do we need to look at? And here we have a couple of things that would impact. And we've got the global trends. That would be everything outside. So the world, the South Africa, the internal trends in our businesses. And remember, the global trends would impact our staff as well, which impacts internally again. And that would, of course, directly impact our strategic planning. But to save some time, I'm going to hand over straight to Conrad because I know he's got, of course, a lot to say on this topic again. With dots.
Yeah. No, the circles are getting smaller and stranger.
There we go.
Yeah. So decision making through value engineering. So we have a process that's very similar to the one that you use for planning, except that what you're working with are instead of outcomes or functions, you're working with criteria. And really, it's the same setting where you've got a group of experts on the topic that you're trying to solve, or on the people with information, people in the know, people who need to be on board with a particular objective. And what you're doing is when you facilitate this process, you come to a point where you've got a set of weighted selection criteria, which, as we would say in a bit of jargon, they're functionally correct. Okay, so you've excluded all of the criteria that are not necessary in order to make your decision. Okay. So again, it's not just the criteria, the things that you need to measure something against, but it's also the things that you don't need to measure them against. And so this has got a weighted selection criteria, and you then use that to make very, very difficult decisions. And we've used this to make crazy decisions, like where do you build a nuclear site, for example. And that stuff gets really interesting, but it scales very nicely. It could be saying, should I sell this business unit, or should I carry on with my business? Should I carry on going, or should I start doing something else? Should I open up a tax consultancy and do that part-time while I work on consulting? Whereas you've got so many different options you may have in your life, and this is a very nice way of actually making decisions that you really know that you won't regret.
Cool.
Put it that way.
Okay. Yeah. And I see you said that this is related to the stuff that gets us in trouble.
Yeah, because you document it step by step as well. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, so you document it, and it's a very rigorous process. And once you see, you can go back to the beginning and say, where did this process start? How did I get to this decision exactly? You can really go back and apply your mind and see the different inflection points. And so it really helps you if you know that you might be audited at some point. Yeah. So somebody is going to come back a couple of years later and say, who the hell made that decision?
There we go.
And then you've got this like an audit trail. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So again, me and the rules, I like that. Okay. So now it's interesting then to see how, now that we've spoken about all these things, how this goes full circle on how to get more for less, how to do more with less. But in each one of these sections, where in the beginning we looked at it and we thought, okay, we're only looking at getting more bang for our buck. When you go and look at each one of these sections, these areas in our business, that actually in each and every one of them, when you go and tweak and measure and where they do impact your business, that you can actually by doing small incremental changes that you can in actual fact get more for less. And where it becomes the bigger decisions that value engineering may very well be where we need to actually go. Anything from your side?
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, these are all this is like almost like a holistic view of different potential impact areas that you could look at in your business. And, the idea is that you have to start making positive changes, right? But you don't have enough money to go and, strip the entire place and start afresh. So the idea is like, how can you get as far down the road possible in each of these impact areas while spending the least amount of resources? And a lot of these impact areas actually help preserve the resources themselves.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's a very nice. I like it as a holistic view of different angles that you could look at your business at, and think about how you can positively influence it.
Great. Okay, so then I suppose in closing, check at that, and we're only 2 minutes over. So in closing, this is where we have to ask ourselves really, do we really know what the highest impact area is in our business? Are our partners and our employees contributing? And really, can the business benefit from a consultation? Because at the end of the day, when we need to make these decisions, when we have to look at what is that high impact area, do we even know what that high impact area is? And if we don't, then maybe that's where a consultation may be of value to you. Or if your partners and your employees are maybe not on board with what you think the changes should be, again, this is where with a consultation or maybe a workshop, one could certainly get the buy-in and work with that. And that was where we would look then at the value engineering. So really, that's where we're at. It's to say, now that we've gone through this, do we even know in our business, if we have to then do more with less, what part of my business do I need to start with? Do I know where to start looking? Are there a couple of key indicators for me that's saying, listen, yes, you need to look at these 3-4 things, and then maybe we need to just break it down in bite-sized chunks and just see what is the next option or the next set of rules that we need to play by. So yeah, this is, I think if you've enjoyed this webinar with me and Conrad, you're welcome to reach out to us, and we are offering to the audience members that were online for the length of the class that if you want to have a chat to us, we will give you a no obligation video conference call. So we will do a Zoom call basically with you, and just see if there is something that we can help you with, a quick chat, and to see if there's anything from our side that could maybe just clear something up for you. Conrad, anything from you in closing? Sorry, Conrad. Michelle, I see we haven't had any questions. I can't see any questions from my side. Audience members, guys, if you want to post questions and you want to hang back, please feel free to
either you've answered them or overwhelmed them.
Oh my goodness. It's Conrad. He broke them.
Like but talking, it's all those blue circles.
Yeah, there we go.
Should have known better.
Oh, goodness. Over to you, Conrad.
Yeah, so just from my side, look, I think, these webinars are always great from an awareness perspective. And I think it's great to put out there, respectively, like what Renata is doing and what we're doing at BM Services. And the awareness is really about saying, oh, okay, these are the different things that are out there, and these are the different areas of my business that could be positively impacted. And really, in like a very authentic sense, do you resonate with this? Do you resonate with those things? And, if you do, then, it's always worth having a chat about, whether you can be helped and there could be a positive change that's valuable to your business, and whether we can be a part of that in terms of partnership. But other than that, it's great at having being a part of these webinars. And thank you for inviting me as a guest. I always enjoy it. And I think it's nice to hear somebody else who's so passionate about what they do, and, just getting that out there and, sharing it with people. I think it's really special. So really appreciate the invite.
Pleasure. Thank you. Yeah, we caught Conrad halfway back home. He's been away on holiday, and Yeah, he's in his Airbnb and I pinned him down.
I'm literally, I think I'm 50 meters from the beach. So
Oh,
I'm being serious.
Okay, bye.
I know, I'm hating on you right now. I'm so hating on you right now. But guys, yes.
Renata, Prisca would like to know when they can call in for a video conference.
So
what's the best way?
I think, Michelle, if you can just post my email address in the chat block for everyone. What we'll do tomorrow, I will be sending out an email to everyone that registered anyway, a thank you email. People can then just reply to my email if they want to reach out to us. Please feel free to reply to my email, but I will pop everyone an email tomorrow to thank them for attending in any event, as I do normally after my workshops. And then from there, please feel free to just tell us that you'd like us to reach out and we will set up a suitable time. There we go, info@Noble Group. There we go. You guys can email there. Thanks. I just want to say thank you to the audience. I really love these monthly masterclasses. I just enjoy the time, and for me, the impact that we have and hopefully the benefit that we can bring to all our business owners. Conrad, thank you for giving up of your beach time to talk to the audience tonight. And
It's only a pleasure.
as always, thank you so much for your time and being here to keep us on the straight and narrow and to moderate in the back end. So much appreciated.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Why don't you let everybody know about your podcast? Can follow and pop it in the mail as well, so they can follow you on your podcast.
Oh yes. Okay, I will do. What? Oh, in the thank you email. Okay, tomorrow I will
thank you email.
Yes, thanks, Michelle. Yeah, so we've got a podcast show where every week I launch a new episode, and that is also very much on business optimization. It's short little episodes, anywhere between, I would say 5 to maybe 10 minutes is probably the longest. And it's really just choosing topics that are pertinent to business owners or to trusts and sometimes estates. And it's just, again, to inform and to educate. So thanks for the reminder, Michelle. And I will mention that in the email. So guys, thank you for your time. Have a lovely, lovely evening. That's it.
Yeah.
Over and out.
You as well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.